Yu-Gi-Oh is about to go through a massive shakeup. With a new set, you may expect maybe one top tier strategy, but with this new Justice Hunter set, we're going to be getting not one, not even two, but three brand new themes that completely change Yu-Gi-Oh, all relevant and playable in their own right. And you're probably wondering, well, Jesse, which of these three meta contenders do you choose to play? Don't worry, I've got you. In this video, we're going to be talking about all three of those decks, their general play style, their weaknesses, and their strengths, so that you can decide for yourself which of these decks you can play in the upcoming Yu-Gi-Oh format. And we're going to start off the one that is probably my favorite, Draco Tales. Draco Tales is essentially Shaddoll's revamped into the modern age. They're incredibly cool. It is a fusion-based strategy that can work alongside many other themes, not just themselves. Its two fusion monsters require a Dracotail, but then any other monster in hand, or multiple monsters in some cases. This means you can send any effects to the graveyard and fuse in a bunch of different ways. In fact, you will see some variations of this deck play Shaddoll cards. It is worth noting, however, that because the fusion materials on the Dracotail cards require monsters in the hand, super polymerization as well as the tier effects are not viable in or against the Dracotail deck. At least not in the traditional sense of using the Dracotail monsters against them. And as with any fusion deck, the effectiveness of the strategy depends a lot on not only the fusion monsters, the fusion materials, but also the access of fusion summoning them. So if it's a spell card, how good are the fusion spells? Because look at Branded, it would probably be nothing without Branded Fusion. That defines the entire archetype. And Dracotail has its fair share of good fusion spells. It actually has 4 ways to fuse, which is fantastic because it means it's not easy to lock you out of the game. Some fusion decks will have a choke point where if you're able to negate or hold your negate for one fusion, even a branded fusion, deck falls apart. Not a problem for Dracotales. The deck can fusion summon with either its 2 spell cards or 2 of its low level monsters, and that means it is extremely consistent at getting what it needs to done. But that really doesn't give you the big picture for Dracotales. You see, your 5 main deck monsters all have this ability, that if they're sent to the graveyard for fusion material, you get to set a Dracotail spell trap from your deck in a way that mimics what Shaddolls do, that extra effect when your cards are used for fusion summon. It doesn't end there because they also do something else when they're sent to the grave. One of your stronger forms of disruption may be to use Dracotail Pan, which after setting a Dracotail spell trap from the deck will then destroy a monster on the field. And it is very possible to summon fusions on the opponent's turn. This deck has 2 separate monsters that let you fuse during either player's turn. One of the monsters is like Cartesia, which during either player's turn can just quick effect fuse. And then with using itself as material can make things incredibly flexibly, and then gets other effects rolling all as well, including its own set from deck effect. But that's not the real draw to this deck. I mean, it is, but there's more, because the other fusion effect that's in monster form and is a quick effect doesn't need to be on the field. It can discard itself to just fuse for your Dracotail cards. And that gives you the ability to fusion summon on your opponent's first turn. That mimics the powerful effects of a Tillman Havness or a Vanquished Soul Holly Sue. It's this ability to play before your opponent even establishes anything that makes the newer sets kind of formidable. And we'll see more of that sort of mechanic with the other archetypes, but Dracotail does do that very well. And having that ability to play so freely on both players' turns goes a long way. And with all this fusion summoning, you get to set a lot of spells and traps. And while I told you guys the spells were pretty good for fusion summoning, and they fusion summon on top of other stuff, you're also going to be setting your traps pretty often, because your traps are really nothing to scoff at. There are 2 Dracotail traps, and they're both formidable in their own right. They both require you to put a Dracotail card from your graveyard to the bottom of the deck, which is a good thing in some circumstances, to then either bounce a monster to the hand or extra deck, or to negate a spell effect. But then after that, you also get to draw a card. So you get some premium disruption here and a constant flow of resources to continue fusion summoning, or to just draw hand traps that'll be very effective. Now, all that could be meaningless if the actual fusion monsters in this deck suck. But thankfully, the fusion monsters here, while not mind-blowing like a Tilament Kitkalos, are still very good. Your main boss monster, Dracotail Eltharion, requires a Dracotail plus any number of monsters in the hand, and that means flexibility among the materials. It can even be a dead, Molcharming Fubulas. Upon fusion summon, you get to Firewall Dragon any number of monsters from either player's field or graveyard. So you target that many monsters up to the number of materials sent for its fusion summon. So some cases 1, other cases more. It depends what you need, but in simple game states 1, and then return them to the hand. So this could be a method to recycle your resources. And it doesn't specify Dracotails for any capacity. So this could mean adding back a card like Artifact Lancia, or adding back Droll and Lockbird. But again, you can also target your opponent's card. So if you need to disrupt the graveyard or bounce a monster on field, easy job for Altharion. And then there's Dracotail Grammel, which is less important in my opinion than your Altharion, but does still have a disruption effect of its own. And that is when a Dracotail card or effect is activated, you need to target a card your opponent controls. Both Dracotail fusions do have one other ability that when two monsters sent to the grave at the same time, so fusion summon, they can reborn themselves, which while isn't super impressive, does give you extra damage output to go for lethal and protection to block yourself from dying from lethal shots. This should give you a good idea of everything going on in your Dracotail deck. You're able to use hand traps to the maximum capacity as you can add them back constantly. And you complement hand traps well by being able to fuse on your opponent's turn, upping your hand trap count alongside your engine. If you like playing a deck that plays immediately on both players' turns, this is a solid option. But unlike Vanquish Soul Canine, which we'll get to later, if you enjoy fusion summoning, then this is a lot more up your alley. It also fits more in line with people who like graveyard effects and using resources in that sort of way. Across the pond, it's common to see Dracotail mixed with other decks, as its flexible ability to fuse means you can put it with a ton of different stuff, including one of the themes we'll get to later. But it is important to note that one of the most popular versions was Magistus, and I talked about Magistus in one of my last videos on this channel with Magistus Spoon. Spoon, the seal of the Magistus, this card is. However, Konami decided not to release it. So that is not going to be an option, but there are other playable ways of playing this deck. For one, Pure is very feasible, but beyond even just the pure Dracotail strategy, or say the Canine version that I recommended, you've also got the Primite version. And it's not just because, haha, Primites, but because there's the new Primite Fusion spell, which will give you some more ability to summon fusion monsters and kind of synergize pretty well. Importantly, that synergy will come up actually more impactfully in one of the next decks I talk about. Still, the Primate cards also have one other advantage, and that is they can access vanilla monsters, which is obvious, but that means your Dragon Tails, which are dragon monsters, can fuse with that spellcaster. That's right, Dark Magician to make Red Eye's Dark Dragoon, which can be a very solid option in simplified game states, as well as, I mean, Dragoon is a fantastic card, it's just hard to summon. So having an easy method of summoning it is well worthwhile. The options with Dracotail are pretty expansive, and we've only seen a small fragment of what they can do. So I'm excited to explore it myself and continue to play it. I hope you guys are as well. And if you're thinking about picking up Dracotail or either of the two other decks I'm going to talk about, then pick them up at TierZeroGames.com. Check the link in the description box below and you'll be able to get 5% off at checkout with my code Jesse5. TierZero is the best place to buy your cards, and they're especially great for buying your pre-sales, getting your cards quick, fast, and reliably, something that not every store can do well. So if you want to save money, get your cards quick, and support myself, then please make sure to use the code Jesse5 and check out TierZero Games. After looking at a bunch of scary big dragons, it's time to move on to the cutesy and delicious Yummy monsters. A fan favorite for a lot of people just because of the fact they're cats and desserts. It's very cutesy, but these cards are not to be underestimated or trifled with, if I want to be punny.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
It is truthfully the deck I am the least interested from these three, but one of them had to be. And it's not for any lack of being competitive. You can argue that in Japan, this is the deck that's most powerful. It actually won their WCQ. But all that aside, what do these cute cats do? What do they get up to? Well, in my mind, it's almost like a combination between Melfi's and Ritual Beast. It's a synchro deck that doesn't play exactly like all of the synchro decks. You see, all your synchro monsters can use a Link 1 monster as a tuner monster. And the deck has a Link 1. So what that means is your deck actually doesn't play tuners in the traditional sense. Instead, you make your Link 1, that acts as your tuner, and then you go into synchros. It's almost like this Sprite-esque way of playing. I guess it's another parallel, where you can use your Link monsters as fodder for your other summons. Each of your 3 Yummy main deck monsters can all summon themselves from the hand whenever you control one of your level 2 synchros, your synchro cats, or your Link 1s, meaning they really do act like Sprite in that way. So I guess it's like a combination of Sprite, Melfi, and Ritual Beast, but I promise it ends up making more sense with the ladders later. Each of your Yummy main deck monsters will get an effect on summon as well, but how you summon them will kind of change how they go about using their effects. Because if you summon them off of the effect of a synchro monster, which is very easy to do, then they get a different effect instead if you so choose. And this is important because some of these effects are disruptions. So you have your classical Stratos, which on summon will search a new Yummy monster with your Cupsy Yummy. But you also have Disruption in the other two with Cookie Yummy and Lollipopo Yummy. Cookie in particular reads like a terrible card because when it's summoned, it makes a monster lose 1,000 attack until you realize that if it was summoned by Synchro, the card you want to lower attack instead just gets destroyed. All of the Yummy Synchros can be summoned in their usual cheat out fashion with the Synchro as a link monster sort of mechanic. But on top of all that, they share one other characteristic, and that is that whenever your opponent uses a card or effect, they can bounce themselves back to the extra deck like a sort of Melfia Ritual Beast monster, to then revive 2 Yummies from your graveyard. That triggers on summon effects, and that's how you get Disruption on the opponent's turn, which is incredibly important. The Yummy monsters do have other effects going on for synchro summoning as well. In fact, one of them is very important to summon on the opponent's turn. Yummy Way on summon lets you turn 2 monsters on the field face down, which is, again, good aggressively, but if you can do this during your opponent's turn, even better. And that's incredibly easy to do because your Link 1 Yummy Snatchy facilitates that. And Link 1 means incredibly easy to summon. It's just level 4 level light beast. But beyond that, lets you synchro summon during your opponent's turn super easily. And of course, you can revive this from the graveyard with your Yummy Synchros. Even more than that, why wouldn't it have one other effect? It's also a Salamangreat Bailings, because it on summon adds or places a Yummy field spell from your deck face up. It does lock you out of linking 3 or higher, so you can't splash Yummies into just any deck, but it does give you a lot of options. And there are some cool Yummy field spells to grab as well, which will progress your combos further. There are 2 other Yummy Synchros though, not just your Cookie, and they are still very valuable. They are typically more used as extension, including one being able to add 2 from your deck to your hand, and then discarding a card. The idea here is simple. You want to cycle through all your Yummy monsters, similar to Ritual Beast, and then eventually set up a field with synchro monsters, say Herald the Archetype, for example, as well as your Yummy monsters to tag out and revive from the graveyard, from which you can then get the pop or the banish from your smaller Yummy main deck monsters, and then with your Link, synchro back into your Cookie to book cards. So it gives you a large breadth of disruption very easily in some powerful 1-card combos. Unlike the 2 other decks in this video, this deck isn't going to be playing on your opponent's turn 0. It's instead a more classical type of combo-ish deck, even though it does play somewhat mid-range, and you can fit in a bunch of different non-engine cards. This deck does lack a bit of engine and extenders, and for that, supplementary engines are somewhat mandatory in this deck. Because every card is beast, you can play a Beating School incredibly easily. In fact, I'd somewhat say it's mandatory. But for other extenders, you may turn to the Sky Striker cards, because recall, your synchros can use Link 1s, which means a simple Sky Striker Hornet Drones can convert a Hornet Drones, Kagari, Hornet Drones again, synchro. And then we get to search 2 Yummy monsters, discard, get into our plays, no problem. No normal summon required, which is super nice. Besides Sky Striker cards though, Primite cards are another interesting trend that is somewhat popular in Japan, and I think it's especially worth noting here because I think those cards are just really powerful. While the Drill Beam stuff is cool, we're actually going for something different. We're really focusing on the fact that Primite Fusion helps us here. Now, why Primite Fusion? What am I using for? Well, the Primite Fusion can summon the new Primite Dragon Fusion monster, which when it goes to the grave can special and normal from the deck. So what you want to do is go Ether Barrel, get load for the fusion spell, and then you go Barrel, send a cell from field to grave, send normal from deck to grave. We're going to send, I can't believe we're playing this, Vanilla. I didn't say vanilla, I said vanilla. That's right, the cute little thing that nobody in their right mind would have thought would be playable ever, but here we are, 15 years later, came out in Photon Shockwave. Anyways, once we're there, we get to fusion summon with Primite Fusion, put back those 2 monsters into our deck, and importantly, summon our fusion monster in the EMZ, because then we get to link off or a gravity controller, which can use any non-link monster in the EMZ to summon it. Its effect is pretty much irrelevant, and it cannot be used for link material. But that doesn't matter, because when we summon Vanilla from the deck, it is a link 1, and thus it is a tuner for our synchro summons. So just like that, if we need engine rather than a Drill Beam shenanigans, we can do just that and right into our plays. So if you're looking to play either Yummy or Dracotail, I'd consider picking up the Primite cards, because they're just good cards to have, but they have some extra flexibility with the new stuff that's been coming out. Furthermore, if you're looking to play the Yummy deck, then some other interesting things to look at are the Dominus cards. Dominus Purge has been pretty staple in Japan as people play this deck, as it's very effective against pretty much anything going on right now. You can stop Dracotail searchers, you can also stop Vanquish Soul searchers and Canine searchers, as well as it's not a effect that activates in the hand or graveyard, which is important for our next theme. But past that, Songs of the Dominator has been growing in popularity as well. Even if not in the main deck, it fits in this theme very nice, because nothing in the strategy that I've mentioned so far has in fact it activates in the hand or graveyard, barring the Primite Fusion. So what that means is you can use Songs of the Dominator to negate stuff, but then you don't have to worry about you cutting off your effects on the hand and graveyard because you don't have any. And the trend we've seen is that hand traps are cut that can't be used straight away. So Maxi in Japan, but here are the Charmies as well, use them straight away, and now your trap card hand traps are live, and you have nothing to worry about. As well, you can use them aggressively on your turn, and you really have no fear of cutting yourself off of anything important. If you're looking for a synchro deck and you like the cutesy art or you just like cats, then there is a ton there for you for Yummy. It's looking like a powerful deck that can push through fields, develop strong ones of its own, and play a large amount on engine, making it a formidable foe in the upcoming format. And that brings us to the last deck in this list, and it's one that will arguably change the game the most, and not just right now, but probably for the future. It is K9. And ironically, it's the deck that doesn't actually work. You see, if you try to play this deck pure, you may have some poor results. It's not at the point where you can play it as pure strategy yet and really get anywhere meaningful. There's not enough cards in the deck to really suffice as a theme. But when the cards go off, they are spectacular. So there's a couple highlights to this theme here. It's a bunch of rank 5 and level 5 monsters that can do some cool stuff. But what's really standing out here is K9 17 Izuna. That and K9 TierZero Lupus, both of which have this clause that during the main phase, if my opponent activated a monster effect in the hand or graveyard this turn, I can summon them. And they both have effects on summon, of course, because why not? And because this is a quick effect, they can turn into disruptions, and that's significantly important because any deck can sort of play this as there's no real locks attached. What Izuna does is it'll send from deck to graveyard and in K9, and it's going to send Lupus. Lupus will summon itself back from the graveyard, and then on summon, exceed summon using monsters you control. I mean, you get a rank 5 for free. That rank 5 also becomes untargetable thanks to Lupus, which is kind of insane, especially as it threatens Zeus play on the next turn. And if it's turn 0, you can't attack said XYZ. But that's brutal because there's many options that are nuts. Take Nash Knight, for example, as removal, or Fallon, a card we'd send of X-Drizel mere weeks ago, we're now actually summoning as it Book of Moon's a monster. There are actual K9 cards to summon though. K9 17 Ripper is actually a very powerful card to summon off of your Izuna combo as well. But the thing is, that package of 3 Izuna and 1 Ripper, it mirrors a sort of Psy-Frame Gamma driver mentality. Not to the same extent, but any deck can play it. And you can play more K9 cards as well to further push that engine, but the idea is any deck can play those cards and have access to more hand traps, removal hand traps, which are extremely rare, which is why Gamma was considered maybe overpowered, as well as because you can use them on your turn, they punish your opponent's hand traps. Incredibly powerful. The interesting thing to note with Lupus as well is that it exceeds summons using itself. And if you only have Lupus or the Izuna leaves the field before the XYZ summon resolves, if your opponent's summoned twice, you can make Typhon, which in some matchups is actually really impactful because say they have Ame no Murakamo on field or Detonator, that checks it. So that's not to be underestimated either. K9 has a bunch of other tools in its arsenal too. It does have some search cards, so it's not entirely inconsistent. For example, Joe is the other 3 of you'll see commonplace in any deck that plays a heavier K9 engine. So Vanquish Soul and Crystron are the 2 that come to mind for me immediately, because it can special summon itself from the hand alongside any level 5 monster. And then once per turn, lets you add a K9 from your deck to your hand, except an Aqua, so just not itself. This synergizes with Crystron cards like Sulfafnir or Sulfador, or the one that's taken over Japan and probably will in our metagame is something like Jiaolong or Holly Sue. With the power behind these K9 cards, it unfortunately isn't enough numerous quantity of cards to build an independent deck, but it is enough to be supplementary engine in almost anything. For example, Dracotail can very easily play that 3 Izuna package. In fact, effectively any deck can. Vanquish Soul can afford a bigger package, as the attributes line up very nicely with Vanquish Soul, and it gives you more turn 0 plays alongside Holly Sue, or in the Dracotail deck alongside your fusion effects of Imina, to really play on both players' turns super effectively. But in the Vanquish Soul deck, it works even better because of level 5 synergy and the attributes. Now, you may be hearing all these rank 5 stuff, and I've told you a small glimpse of what it accomplishes, but that's not the full picture yet. So what does Ripper do? Remember lets you detach material to add a K9 card from your deck to your hand. Then your opponents use a monster effect this turn, you can set a K9 quick play spell from your deck as well. So it's double searching, it's just duo drive, and that's nuts because it of course has another effect. It's somehow one-up the duo drive, which is already broken. And that is when your opponent uses a monster effect in the hand or graveyard, you can detach material to negate that effect. And that is important in, say, a Vanquish Soul mirror match or a K9 mirror match. And you did hear me right, there are quick play spells in K9, and they're rank up spells. And there is a clear and better one for me, and that is X-Forced Liberation. Lets you rank up a K9 XYZ into a different K9 XYZ, and then lets you destroy a card your opponent controls. So it's rank up and then pop. So it's kind of offsetting that natural negness of rank up spells. Furthermore, at the end of the battle phase, the K9 battles, it resets itself. So it really isn't a negative card. But still, what you're going to be accomplishing here is summoning your rank 9 K9 Werewolf, which I'm kind of mad this card exists because when your opponent uses a card or effect, detach your material and it uses either one of the following two effects depending on whose turn it is. If it's yours, you banish your card, put it controls, or from the grave. But if it's your opponent's turn, you look at their hand and banish your card from it until the end phase. I think that is way too strong, but it means that the K9 strategy when it goes first can set up wide impactful fields doing very little and requiring very little setup and very little engine requirements. With just one quick play spell in your deck, you can do some really powerful things and have some really powerful disruptions and some really powerful hand traps. It's really the making of a must-buy engine, even if you don't want an entire K9 deck. There are other K9 cards in the strategy though, they just aren't relevant right now. But it is important to remember that for each new theme in a deck build set like this, we get more cards in the month's future. Say Malice got March Hare, Rise got Star, and YuGiOh got some pendulum I don't know the name of. And K9 and such will all be the same. So maybe it is time to pick up those K9 cards that are less popular right now because they may be important in the future. If you're looking to fully maximize the value behind these K9 cards, I'll recommend K9 Vanquish Soul. It's not really a surprising deck. It is the deck that has arguably dominated the OCG for the last few months, and while the other two decks have shown some promise, it has definitely been the most resilient despite being the most targeted deck. It is rather hard to counter, it can play well during both players' turns, and doesn't have any sort of one weakness that'll stop it from playing. It isn't overly reliable in the extra deck, but still uses rank 5s extremely effectively to apply a ton of pressure. Some other cards to pick up if you're looking to pay K9s or any of the K9 variants are the CXYZ alongside the Nash Knight, and then the Umbral Horrors that go alongside it, so 104 and C104. And those are the three meta-breaking strategies that come out in Justice Hunters. Out of those three picks, which are you inclined to choose? I'm curious to see which you favor. If it's Dracotail like me, is it the K9 deck, which K9 deck specifically, or maybe it's Yummy? Comment down below because I want to see which you guys are picking. And again, check out TierZero games if you're looking to pick it up. But also, please make sure to like and subscribe. We're hoping to push 5,000 subscribers this year. Next video, I'll be showing you how to beat each of these decks. So make sure you hit the notification bell and subscribe so you'll catch it when it comes out. But in the meantime, if you want more competitive content, click on this video on screen.